The world we are living in, they need what we have to give. They need our love. They need our joy. They need our peace. They need our patience. They need our kindness. They need our goodness, our faithfulness, our gentleness, and our self control. I used to hear that and I would get frustrated. I would be like, but I need all that stuff too. They're not the only people who need that. I need that too. But you know the Bible, right? It's I used to feel like that was one sided until I understand that when you give these types of gifts, they keep on giving. These types of gifts, they keep producing fruit for generations to come. There are people that have been good to me in my life because my grandma was good to them, because my mama was good to them, because my aunt or my uncle might have been good to them, right? Because their fruit is still producing fruit. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm breaking up. Okay. Let me see. My internet connection. Okay. Let me know if I start buffering or anything. Thank you. I hope it's better. All right. Okay. So their fruit is producing fruit, right? So what am I saying to you? Don't be weary in your well doing. Like, because it's going you gonna reap if you faint not. And even if you don't reap, there have been people that looked out for my kids because of me. There are things that could have happened to me and people did good by me because of my husband. What I'm saying is it's not just about people been good to me because of who my best friend is. People been good to me because of, co-workers that I've had. What I'm trying to say is your fruit is valuable because that fruit always carries seeds. Let's not get caught up in this GMO society we live in with all this fake, seedless stuff. They said the Bible says as long as the world is here, it's going to be seed time and harvest. And I used to think about that like, okay, well, so you're saying that as long as the world is here, everybody going to be planting? No, you know what I realize? I realize that what you're saying is as long as we here existing, it's going to be an opportunity to sow seed and reap harvest. As long as we here. As long as we're existing, it's going to be an opportunity to do those things. So my question to you is, are you willing? Are you willing to sow the seeds? Are you willing to keep working towards it, even if the fruit and veggies aren't produced as fast as you thought it should be? Even if, I want you to look at it. If you can see this video, look at all these different fruit and veggies that are behind me. I'm not the I'm not Fields Farm. I'm not Miss Anna, right? This beautiful farmer I just met, 84 years old, still out there. It's amazing. Just something beautiful to look forward to and live a long life, right? But I would feel like I'm safe to say that when you plant these different types of seeds, you don't plant them all exactly the same. Some of them need to go deeper in the ground than the others. Some of them need to sit on top and then take root. Some of them need a lot of water. Some of them don't need as much water. Some of them are going to sprout up a plant or fruit or veggie a lot faster than others. But does that mean the one that isn't producing as fast, the one that isn't covering up as fast, isn't worthy? Is it going to work? So we need to think about that in our own personal lives. We need to think about that when we are doing work, when we dealing with people who difficult, when we're confronting difficult things. That I gotta get on the phone and talk to these people and handle this probate stuff. It is hard. Almost every time I have to have a good deep cry. Every time I gotta call these people and saying I'm calling as the personal representative of Susan Beach. What? I'm reminded that my mama is not here. And every time I say that, it's like a sucker punch to the gut. Every single time. But I gotta keep pushing. But guess what I learned? If my pushing is just laying on the couch that day, I'm still sowing seeds. If my pushing is, crying all day, I'm still sowing seeds, because it's just about not giving up. It's about not unaliving myself. It's about living this testimony out. If I talk about this hard work process, connection, awareness, acceptance, forgiveness, make a decision, take action. If I'm going to preach it, guess what? I got to practice it. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now in my life. That's what's happening in the lives of those around me. So I just want to encourage you in your challenges right now. That challenge, I want to encourage you to consider that challenge as maybe that's you preparing the ground for some new seeds, right? Maybe that challenge is you having to go back and pull up some weeds and pull up some rocks that presented themselves after you planted those seeds. Maybe that challenge is, a part of your harvest time. You're going to reap your reward if you faint not. But the other thing that I was reminded of that I want to share with y'all too, because as I've been studying this whole idea about the seed and the harvest and things like that, there is another passage that really sticks out to me too, because it actually comes up at a time when the Isaiah is talking about what the Lord is going to do as far as taking war, like going to war against his enemies, right? And then he gives this, and I'm still studying it. I encourage you to read it for yourself, but I'm going to put this in the chat in Zoom so y'all can look at this. I want to put this in here. Let me see if I can get it to do the right thing. It might not do the right thing. But the thing that got me with this was it talked about one of the things that I love so much, black seed oil. Well, I don't love how it tastes, but I really love the benefits of what it has done for me and my family. While I'm pulling that up, does anybody have any comments or questions? Anything you care to share in reference to what I am talking about? All right. Um, I put this passage in the chat. And so it's Isaiah. We talking about sowing seeds, right? And we talking about how it produced a certain harvest in our lives. And so in Isaiah chapter 29, chapter 28, starting at verse 23, it says, "Listen and hear my voice. Pay attention and hear what I say. When a farmer plows for planting, does he plow continually? Does he keep on breaking up and working the does he keep on breaking up and working the soil? When he has leveled the surface, does he not sow caraway and scatter cumin? Does he not plant wheat in its place, barley in its plot, and spelt in its field? His God instructs him and teaches him the right way. Caraway is threshed with a sledge. No, caraway is not threshed with a sledge, nor is the wheel of a cart rolled over cumin. Caraway is beaten out with a rod and cumin with a stick. Grain must be ground to make bread, so one does not go threshing it forever. The wheels of a threshing cart may be rolled over it, but one does not use horses to grind grain. All this comes from the Lord Almighty, whose plan is wonderful, whose wisdom is magnificent." I wanted to read this to you, because if you read this whole chapter, I think the title of this chapter is entitled, Woe to the leaders of Ephraim and Judah. And the reason why I read that to you is because at the end of this, it's talking about how this is how the Lord, his plan, the Lord Almighty, whose plan is wonderful, whose wisdom is magnificent. So this comes up is pretty much like a response to how the Lord was going to deal with some of his enemies. But then he goes into this like farming lesson, right? He goes into this farming lesson. And as I read it, I realize that, you know what? When we live our lives in the fruit of the Spirit and we sow those seeds according to how they should be sown, we reap a great harvest that's also like a war chest. This harvest is like a protective barrier around us. It's like having food for winter when there is no crop. I'm not from Detroit like Miss Connie, but I know it get cold up there. So I can't imagine how many things are growing outside when it's freezing outside like that. Right? So when we think about our lives and we think about the power of, producing, but the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. There is no law against these things, right? So, but even in these things being fruit, understand that they have a way and a place that they need to be sown. So if you're operating in love, but your intention may be to operate in love, but make sure that it's coming across that way, right? Make sure that you may have the seed of love, but also have a heart to want to sow that seed the way it needs to be sown, not necessarily the way you want to sow it, right? So that's talking about putting the seed in the ground, but what about how the seed may need to be harvested? Make sure that when it's time to harvest love, and it's time to harvest joy, and it's time to harvest peace, and it's time to harvest patience, make sure you're also doing that correctly. And we don't have to guess. How do we find out how to do it? We pray and ask God to show us, because that's what Isaiah 28 just said. The Lord's wisdom is magnificent. It says, all this comes from the Lord Almighty, whose plan is wonderful, whose wisdom is magnificent. So the plan of the Lord for how he wants us to sow this fruit of the Spirit, how he wants us to share love and share joy. Let me tell you something. When I was living, and I'm still working on this, but when I was living my life from a very self-centered, low self-esteem perspective, when I sowed seeds of love, I felt a lot of times taken advantage of. I felt like the victim. I felt like, well, I'm showing love and I'm spreading peace and I'm spreading patience and I'm spreading kindness, but I'm not necessarily getting it back. So I'm sowing the seeds, but when it's time to harvest, it's not coming up. So one thing to think about is, okay, the fact that maybe have I been sowing it properly in its proper way, in its proper place? Like the scripture said, it says, verse 25, it says, when he has leveled the surface, does he not sow caraway and scatter cumin? So one of them needs to be physically sown. The other one just needs to be scattered, right? Does he not plant wheat in its place, barley in its plot, and spelt in its field? Everything has a way and a place. So sometimes we get frustrated. And so I always tell people, if you're going to apologize to somebody, mean it. If you're going to do better, sincerely try. Don't just give people your hand-me-downs, your leftovers, and expect them to be excited about it. And sometimes when we look at our harvest, we see the quality of the seeds we actually been sowing, and maybe it wasn't good enough. Maybe we were putting in things we didn't want to get back, and we didn't realize it until that harvest came up. Anybody have any comments or questions? Anyone want to share? So as we go through and we think about being fruitful and living fruitful, as we go through and we think about what that means, what that looks like how that feels for us, understand, just like this fruit, they all get planted a certain way. They all get harvested a certain way. And if you really want to reap the fruit of your labor, you got to care about how you reaping it. Like, why spend all that time sowing seeds and taking the time to figure out how to put it in the ground if you're not going to take care of it and harvest it properly? And I'm guilty of that. And I could say that, in doing hard work, it has forced me to reconcile with a lot of the inconsistencies within myself, and I'm still working on it. But because I love this work, I am so thankful to God for Jesus saving me. I am so thankful for my heart having the opportunity to use these tools and skills to work through. I am so thankful for the people God has put in my life to help me process through some of the roughest, toughest times in my life. And one of the things that this has forced me to reckon with and realize is that I don't have time to be playing around and just sowing seed just to sow it. Like, if I'm a sow it, I need to stick around and take the time to take care of it, or be willing to release it to the next person who's been called to take care of it, but be willing to be a part of the process of seed time and harvest. Sometimes we quick to run to the areas we feel strong and we feel comfortable, but sometimes we're being challenged in other areas, and we have to be willing to see this thing through to the end. We also have to be willing to make the necessary adjustments that are there so that we can see this thing through to the end. Because the world is starving. And they need this fruit that we have to have. And I think this is a beautiful picture. I don't know. Y'all tell me. Those that can't put it in the chat, you tell me what you think about the picture. But I think it's beautiful. But the beautiful thing about it is, thank you for that. The beautiful thing I think even more about it is I want you to see the actions you do throughout the day. Think of how you can get to this time at night and be so exhausted about all the things you had to do, the things you had to go through, some of the challenges that you had, and probably even excited about some things that you're going through. I want you to think about every interaction you have in your life like these beautiful, different fruits and vegetables. The leaves that are on this picture represent beautiful different types of trees. I know I see like a maple leaf on there. I'm still look like an oak leaf on there. I'm still working on recognizing my trees. I want to get better at recognizing natural things, not artificial things. I know a lot of artificial things. I'm trying to get better at recognizing the natural, right, things in life. I want to encourage you that every interaction you have in your life is like this. You sowing some type of seed, and what if it all produced a harvest? Like I said, I think it's in Paul said, and I think it's like First or Second Corinthians. He was like, the farmer. It talks about, and I'm paraphrasing, like, just sowing all kinds of seeds, and maybe one will sprout up, or maybe all of them will, but you won't know unless you try. And I just want to encourage you to keep spreading your light and spreading your joy and spreading your love with the world, because you have a lot to give. And when you get tired, rest. It's okay. Let me tell you something I learned watching my mama die. Life goes on. I was with my best friend in Lowe's the day after my mama died. And let me tell y'all something. Lowe's opened up that day. And people were in there shopping. And they were going about their daily life. And I got angry. And I said, how all these people, they just going about their lives. And my mama's dead. Don't they know my mama's dead? And that's when it hit me. That's my situation I'm going through. But guess what? Life goes on. We get ourselves caught up sowing. We catch ourselves sowing these GMO seeds and wonder why the stuff don't taste the way we want it to taste at harvest time. Let's stop living our lives in ways that we are God in people's lives. Learn that you can stand strong and share your fruit and do all those things. But guess what? You don't have to always fix it. You don't have to always have the answer. You don't have to always have it figured out. And you still sowing beautiful fruit. Just keep figuring it out. Keep pushing forward. Just don't give up. Even if you're pushing forward, it's just waking up that day. drinking a glass of water, getting something to eat. And maybe you go out and save the world. Maybe you doing some big thing. Maybe you got the next electric vehicle, or you cured kidney failure and now nobody have to be on dialysis and no more cancer. Whatever it is, we appreciate you. Just keep sowing seeds. Something may sprout up, all of it might sprout up. I just think about somebody bringing me a basket with all these things in it, how excited I would be. I might not even know how to cook half the stuff, but I'll figure it out. I'll get on TikTok or YouTube or call somebody or something. I would just be so excited to have such a bountiful, beautiful harvest that's healthy for me. We've harvested enough junk food in our lives. Let's keep sowing and reaping good stuff. Let's keep working towards living our lives in the fruit of the Spirit. And when you get weary and tired, rest. Matter of fact, rest before you get weary and tired so you don't have to get that low. You don't have to go that far. And these are things that I'm learning. But I'm thankful for this process. And I'm so thankful. So questions that you have, like in reference to this conversation, or just anything that came up. Yes, Miss Coney. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Has always been our soul is eternal. And shortly, we're going to take off these clothes. You're going to take off these clothes because I know you and your mama have been together several different times throughout eternity and are going to be together again. You know, you're doing this stuff and allowing other people to rise from where they are and to understand that this journey that we're on, it's not like stepping up. This journey is our souls going out. We're expanding
Mm-hmm.
out. So there are no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
People ain't making mistakes because it's like an adventure. You go down one path and you're like, oh man, hey, having the idea, not doing the work doesn't really work. Okay, let's do this. You know, so
Yes.
it's not even a matter of wasting time feeling bad about something that was part of this journey because it's not important because we're expanding. We expand when we do the right thing. We expand when we make a mistake because what it is expanding our knowledge. And our
Yes.
spirit takes that stuff and it grows.
Mm.
So I've enjoyed myself here and I'm now going to shut up.
Well, I appreciate your wisdom. That was a very fruitful way of seeing where my mother is, and I thank you for that because that lightened my heart for real. Like it really did. So thank you. You don't have to shut up. We appreciate the wisdom. You weren't on. We had Mother Bertha Richardson. Mother Bertha was 86 years old, and every Monday night she would stay up past her bedtime to do heart talk with us. And her children, her grandchildren knew not to call her because she wasn't answering. And we were honored. And you are not 86, not even close. But I'm just saying we appreciate the wisdom. And we all have wisdom we can share, but we appreciate the wisdom that you bring. So thank you. Thank you for that. Is there anybody else that want to share? I'm going to call some people out. Courtney, you got anything on your heart tonight? You always have some nuggets for us.
Right. No, I was actually going to chime in and say, uh, tonight really, I, um, I really enjoyed the heart talk. I normally have a comment every time we have heart talk, but I felt like tonight was just my time to take it in and digest everything that was being said, because it hit home for life in the season. And like I tell you all the time, I can relate to your feeling and losing your mom. But for me, I feel like right now in this season, it's almost a double dose of missing both of my parents and having to deal with grief on both sides. So, like I told you last week, and I'll continue to tell you, one day at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and allow yourself to feel every emotion that you're feeling. Because here it is 2 years from my mom and 7 years from my dad, and both of them still feels like yesterday. Um, I had a moment today, and it's just one of those things. Life is life, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Get emotional. This is the space for you to do it. Don't be sorry. Don't you ever be sorry for crying with us, because I'm crying with you. Because, see,
Yeah,
before I didn't understand, but
right.
now I do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like, we tell people when they lose a loved one all the